Hello, welcome to Native Americans Part 2. Our thesis continues to be our country's history begins with the clash of Native and European peoples. Last time we looked at preconceptions or misconceptions and using primary sources to discover worldview. Today we'll examine how did Native relationships differ from European relationships. So we're going to be doing something a little challenging. I'm going to be explaining a concept from Native American relationships verbally. And then I need you to look for the sheet of Native American relationships under Native American Readings and Handouts. It's titled Hist101DH number 1, Native Relationships Asynchronous. And then I want you to, after listening to the question, give me the number from the Native American relationship sheet which matches the verbal description I give you. I'm going to give you an example right now in the upcoming exercise. So question 1. Which quote, again I'm going to ask you verbally, which quote shows female power as they say yes or no to male visitors at night? So then you're going to go look at the Native relationship sheet, and I made it a little easy. It's response number 1. So of course they're not going to go that easy, but anyways, it's the young men will go in the night from one house to another to visit the young women, in which sort of rambles they will spend the whole night. In their addresses they find no delays, for if she is willing to entertain the man, she gives him encouragement and grants him admittance. Otherwise she withdraws her face from him and says, I cannot see you. Either you or I must leave this cabin and sleep somewhere else this night. So this is from a primary source. It's from 1709. It's an English trader, John Lawson, describing Native sexuality in North Carolina. So what I would do right now is take a look at that worksheet and maybe in your own words write out what each quote is about, so when I ask you the question you can easily find it. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the questions right now. All right, so question 2 is which quote describes how men aren't part of their wife's family? So for question 2, you're going to find the quote out of those other 11 quotes which replicates that question, answers that question. Which one describes how men aren't part of their wife's family? Question 3, which quote is about how natives value voluntary marriage and divorce? So think about it also, how's that different from European relationships, which is pretty interesting. But what I want is the quote that is about how natives value voluntary marriage and divorce for question 3. Question 4, which quote describes how children will not avenge their father because the father is not family? The mother's side will avenge. So that actually goes back to a question I asked you for 2. If fathers are not family, but that this is the ramifications, is that children will not avenge their father because the father's not family. Question 5, which one is about birth control and abortion and how single females shouldn't have children? So Native women, Native females are having sex at 12 or 13. They were discouraged from having children until they were married. So the question is, which quote is about birth control and abortion and how single females shouldn't have children? Question 6, which quote describes gender roles with women as farmers and men as hunters and warriors? So this is actually a picture of the women farming. Question 7, this is a little bit longer. Which quote describes how people considered a third gender, males, wear women's clothes and have homosexual sex and how they are accepted in Native culture? I'm going to give you a hint, though. The author is French and uses terms which seem more judgmental, but he's not reflecting Native values. So tell me which quote answers that. And this is actually a picture. They're called berdachs, B-E-R-D-A-C-H-E-E, and it's an older term, but I think it's still used more predominantly. It's kind of like a two-spirit. Question 8, which quote explains that if the male brags about his time with the female, she will shut him out? So now find the response. Question 9, which quote describes how men hang out with other men and only visit their wife at night? Question 10, this picture doesn't really go with the question as much, but when you hear the question, you'll understand why I did not have an easy time finding an answer or picture for this. Which quote describes females who are hospitality gifts? Again, they're not prostitutes, you guys, but hospitality gifts, and how they shouldn't have a child in this culture. But once they stop engaging in sexual activity with multiple men, they have a better reputation and can find a husband. Then they can have a child, and that's what this picture is. Question 11, which one explains how children only belong to the mother and not to the father? And lastly, which one explains that natives never should commit incest, which would be relatives on the mother's side? So that's question 12. So what I'm looking for is questions 1 through 12, and then your quotes in the order that you found them. So again, this goes with our country's history begins with the clash of Native and European peoples. I mean, think about all those values, right? You don't have to answer this, but think about how this is so different than European values. And that is it. So thank you very much.